this project that's called Research in Translation, Public Engagement through Exhibition Displays. It was a training project, actually. It was funded by the AHRC through the
Collaborative Skills Development. Cool.
She knows as well, and she knows more than me, perhaps. Okay, so practically there was a pot of money that we could apply for, which really kind of aimed to create some sort of training program for early career researchers. So what we decided to do was to have a first two-day workshop working with the museum professionals at Birmingham Museums. So this was for the participants the first opportunity to really maybe think about how museums really produce an exhibition, how they do research, how they present their research to the public. The second workshop that was here at Leicester with designers, there was also an aim to think about, or a wish to think about digital technologies, how digital technologies might enable us to communicate in an easier manner, in more kind of accessible manner to members of the public.
The Research in Translation project is a training opportunity for early career researchers in the fields of arts, humanities and social sciences to translate their research into a three-dimensional exhibition display.
We were starting with something that was already there, so the research of the participants. And those participants, we purposefully decided to work with researchers that had very little or none experience with the exhibition format. I mean, a couple of them perhaps had worked on an exhibition, but they hadn't really presented their own research as such.
This is the first time that I've done this type of engagement work. I've worked with Aboriginal communities about developing, well, I should say Aboriginal communities in Canada, about developing materials to use in schools and things like that, but this is the first time it's been engagement on this sort of a level.
We had people coming from linguistic kind of departments.
Medieval history.
Then we had
two, but we only got down to one for that, didn't we?
Yeah. There was somebody from film studies. There was somebody from, is she an historian, Rebecca?
Rebecca is, historian stroke archivist type.
Yeah, we had several were like cultural heritage, like Emma. Then we had
Rosemary, social stroke public history. In terms of the demand for this kind of project, I think there's a huge demand in universities now that we have to prove that what we are doing in research has an impact on a wider public, on wider society, and also from just talking to researchers around and about, even in Leicester, the number of people I meet who say, oh, I have to put on an exhibition, I've been told to put on an exhibition, but to me, they don't really have any training in, they're just being expected to do it by the university. And I think there's a real tension that there's a sense that an exhibition is something quite straightforward to do. You just stick a bit of text on a wall, put a few objects in a case, and that's an exhibition. And so I think there's a need to actually learn what an exhibition is, how it's a real skill to be able to tell a story through text, through objects, in a way which enables people to understand it on a number of different levels, not just not just intellectually, but emotionally and physically as well.
And this idea of public relevance, how you make something that might be very exciting for you because it's your research, what you have been working on for many years, especially in the context of perhaps completing a PhD, so you have spent your life in the last 2 to 3, 4 years, how many years this takes. And then you think it's the most important thing in the world. And maybe for yourself, and it might be very important from the viewpoint of knowledge production, but still, how do you kind of present this to the main public? How do you make it relevant? How do you engage with something that sometimes can be very, very, a very specialistic kind of knowledge?
So it was a real challenge to try to make it interesting in a visual way for this project, because everything that we do is very text-based. The project that I've been working on is about language and migration in Northern Ireland, and we've been looking at historical letters of Irish migrants who went to America, and also people who have come to Northern Ireland now in the past, say, 10 or 15 years in their families, and we're sort of comparing the experiences of these two people, or two groups of people.
We thought that we would need to have a sort of mentor structure as well, so those participants would have someone working alongside them to help bounce ideas off, you know, test out ideas on, and hope that sort of help that creative process along.
When I heard about the project, I was interested to join because I have a background in museum studies, and I just really relished the opportunity to be involved, and share knowledge and experience that I've built up, and probably fundamentally to work as a team, to help young people, and feel that I was contributing something. Building up that sort of relationship with my mentees, establishing a trust that they trusted my opinion and my judgment of things. I feel that when we would sort of talk and debate, how things sort of were going.
I have gained practical skills about putting together exhibitions, a better understanding of what's involved in this type of work. And I think the other really valuable thing that I've gotten out of this experience is the relationships that I've built with the other people in the program, with the mentors, with Carrie and Serena, who put the program together. And I think just knowing that there are other people that I can talk to about this kind of work who are just as passionate about working with people and about engaging with people, about research. I think that's really the biggest takeaway for me, is just knowing that there are other people out there who want to do this kind of work, and that maybe these are people that I'll be able to work with in the future.
It's also because of the people who are involved with the project. So it was that there was this whole group. There was nobody who you felt like, oh, you don't get on with them, or that was problematic. Like, the whole group worked really, really well together.
In order to create like a network, a supporting network within which the individuals, all the researchers could kind of start thinking through their own research, start experimenting with ways of developing, or translating their own ideas into something that was tridimensional, visual, and was kind of presentable through using displays, but also using other media.
It's been a really interesting experience in that I've got a lot more theoretical background that I really needed, and it also made me think about the various ideas that I had and how I could condense them into an exhibit. And I went through a couple of permutations of what I wanted to do, until in the end I tossed everything and started from scratch and came up with this one. And that was fun, and it was really helpful, and I think the things that I threw away, they're going to be the next exhibition for sure.
For me, I think the biggest challenge the participants had was the amount of text.
Yeah.
They really, some of them struggled to keep the amount of text down. And there's, again, it's going back to that, how can you communicate your idea in a way that's simple? That's a real skill, and I think that was a skill that was very variable.
My research within linguistics, the things I like looking at most are speech sounds. So the consonants and vowels we produce, but also the melody with which we speak. Their languages are quite different, that use melody to a much bigger extent than English does. So the language I study does that. The cool thing about languages like Akan and like Yoruba is that when you have melody in your language that is so meaningful, then what you can do is play this melody on a drum that you can tune, like you can tune a guitar. And then the drum can start talking for you. So the areas in West Africa where, in order to communicate from one village to another, you have drums, you play those drums, and it sends a message across to the next village. Not like, oh, we know that 2 beats mean that and 3 beats mean that. No, they can actually say quite elaborate messages. So you can take this drum, and if you beat it like this, it sounds very dull. And as you bring your arm down and up, you tighten the strings, and that tightens the skin, and that makes the pitch higher. So if this guy, for example, wants to drum the word for time, now I'm no talking drummer, let me just say that. I'm really rubbish at this, but I can fake it a little bit. So if I want to play time, I need to keep the pitch a bit low, so I need to keep my arm a bit up and just beat it a bit. If I want to beat 200, I need to tighten it a bit more and have a higher pitch, so we have something like that. And I want people to try this. I want people to play with this exhibit, and I want them to have a go at the drumming. I want them to move this thing around to understand what's going on. I hope they will. And play with the drums.
I think there was a difference between those participants who were making exhibitions for themselves and those participants who were making exhibitions for a wider audience. And in my head it seems obvious which are those.
And I think we agree on them.
Yeah. And I think me and Serena were always in agreement which ones would work really well on a public level.
Suddenly we were thinking, everybody was thinking outside the box. Nobody wanted to use the cases. We have fantastic cases here at the school and nobody wanted to use them. And I was like, oh, what do we do with the cases now? We cannot really move them. So, you could see the different ways in which they responded to these very creative inputs and this very open process. It was about how can I think outside the box and what it means to do this when I possibly have never done so. So there were some that possibly were much more willing to take risks and to really try out different ideas. So I would say that there was an element of disciplines and possibly methodologies and data that kind of enabled some of our participants to really engage with the process much more in an immediate way.
One mentee, she just had so many ideas, so much creativity. I mean, we could say she was with the right person or the wrong person, because I just got flooded into what me and Irina weren't going to do, and hopefully it will appear. But all these wonderful ideas that were going swimmingly towards conclusion, and then of course in the last week there have been so many technical things, haven't there, with the paper, the wrong paper to the bookbinder, and her actors fell out and stuff. So I suppose the challenge was, really sort of like trying to enable and push creativity.
This idea of, how can you transform academia in a much more democratic space where people are willing to share their own knowledge and expertise, thinking that through working together they can produce something that's much more than the sum of the parts. What I think for me it's important is that, I'm not eluding myself that we have changed academia, because we haven't. But what we can say that we have planted some seeds that some of our researchers are going to kind of pick up on. And in reality, we have seen a number of them, a few of them, not a number, that have already started kind of, maybe got a job in Switzerland also because they could say they had taken part in this program and they were able to propose ideas at the interview moment in which they said, okay, what can we do here, drawing on this project?
Well, I'm moving to a university in Switzerland in the fall, and one of the things that we've been talking about doing, it's very early days, is working with the canton about doing exhibitions about multilingualism in the country, because Switzerland is so multilingual and multicultural, and it would be a really nice way to get to know the communities, get to know people in the area and see what they think about living in a place that has so much diversity. And I think that we have a lot of exciting ideas that we're starting to build in terms of exhibitions and just collecting stories and just even the research approach. Sort of the idea that it's not just for us as researchers, but it's also something that we want to give back to the community in the end.
There's a movement in museums called co-creation, where it's bringing in the communities that museums traditionally work with to develop exhibitions as well. And I think there's a lot that could be learnt from co-creation, co-creative techniques that we could bring to working with researchers who also often work with people in their own research. So it's thinking about how these sort of different relationships and how we can make them more democratic and get everybody collaborating together on an exhibition or display or whatever medium we come up with.
I think we could see this as a pilot, and now we've got some really useful data that we can take to funding bodies and say, look, we've done this project, we had 12 participants, they did all this excellent stuff on the really small budget. Just think what we could do with more money.
Yeah.
We've got really good evidence that the approach does work, I think.